Have you ever heard about the mysterious hieroglyphs hidden at the bottom of the Aral Sea? No. What about an entire sunken city that contradicts some historical facts? No. Then this video is definitely for you. Today, I will tell you about the most intriguing secrets of the Aral Sea and its mysteries. Enjoy the viewing. The Aral Sea is a vast, disappearing saltwater lake in Central Asia, located between Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. About 6 decades ago, it was one of the largest lakes on the planet, ranking 4th in area. But now it has almost completely dried up, turning into the Aral Sea Desert, the youngest in the world. Tourists come here to see the unique ship graveyard. Abandoned vessels standing in the middle of the desert, like a monument to former glory. The Aral Sea was formed by glaciers melting on the slopes of the Pamir and Tian Shan mountain ranges. Over time, the rivers that filled the lake would shrink and swell again, changing the water level and its salinity. About 13,000 years ago, due to a decrease in water inflow, the salinity of the lake sharply increased. Ancient historians also mentioned it under different names. Herodotus in the 5th century BC referred to it as the Saka Bay, believing it was connected to the Caspian Sea. The Arab geographer Istokri referred to it as Lake Khwarezm in the 11th century. The modern name Aral, which means island, became established when the lake turned into a millet field, and numerous islets appeared on its surface. Today, the Aral Sea occupies only part of the territories of Aktob and Kyzylorda regions of Kazakhstan, as well as the Republic of Karakalpakstan and Uzbekistan. It is divided into 2 separate bodies of water, the small and large Aral, separated by a dam. The surface area of the water body has shrunk to 8,000 square kilometers, and the water volume has dropped to 75 cubic kilometers. Since the Aral Sea is not connected to the world ocean, it is technically not a sea, although its waters have a unique composition. The unusual behavior of the water body raises scientific interest. For example, the current deviates to the left, which is not typical for other bodies of water in the northern hemisphere, and with increasing depth, the oxygen level rises. These mysteries make the Aral a unique natural object, which is why it is sometimes referred to as the wrong sea. Let's return to the amazing features of the Aral Sea. According to the general laws of physics and the influence of the Earth's rotation, bodies of water in the northern hemisphere tend to deflect their current to the right, but the Aral does not follow these rules. Its current is surprisingly directed to the left, moving in a clockwise direction. Another mystery: the unusual dynamics of oxygen. Unlike most bodies of water, where oxygen saturation decreases with depth, in the Aral, it actually increases. The water here is predominantly composed of sulfates and carbonates, the ions of which give the sea salt its unique properties, turning its water into a kind of hybrid that combines the characteristics of both sea and river water. Maximum temperatures in the Aral region, observed in July, sometimes reach up to 50 degrees. This is characteristic of the neighboring deserts of Karakum and Kizilkum. The climate in these parts is ruthless, and only truly tough people can survive here, as the locals themselves claim. But why has life in the Aral become so harsh, and why is the sea disappearing so quickly? The foundations of this phenomenon were laid by large-scale irrigation projects. In the late 1920s, the Soviet Union began actively developing irrigated agriculture in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, with a particular focus on cotton, the white gold, which is extremely water-intensive. To irrigate the fields, canals were dug from the main rivers feeding the lake, the Amu Darya and Sir Darya, and soon the demand for water increased so much that the Aral began to rapidly shrink. Being initially shallow, with a maximum depth of only about 15 meters, the lake could not withstand the thirst of the cotton fields. The primitive canal system lost a significant amount of water in the desert sands, leaving no chance for recovery. Over time, the drying of the Aral led to a grim picture. Dead ships lie on the former seabed, remaining as a post-apocalyptic monument. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The disappearance of the vast water body changed the climate, worsened the health of local residents, exacerbated social issues, and dealt a devastating blow to the ecology. Previously, the sea softened the winters and provided coolness in the summer. Now, however, summers here have become hot and dry, while winters are cold and harsh. But the changes affected not only nature. The drying up of the Aral Sea had a serious impact on the lives of people whose fate was tied to the sea. What? When the fishing industry in the Aral Sea completely ceased to exist in the 1980s, 60,000 people were left without jobs and were forced to leave their homes. Climate change and the growing environmental threat forced even those who were not dependent on fishing to leave. If in the 60s there were over 40 species of fish in the Aral Sea, by the end of the 70s, only 6 were left. In an attempt to save the fishing industry in the 70s, Black Sea flounder were introduced, but by 2003, the concentration of salt and chemicals had increased so much that the flounder disappeared. Bro, what are you saying, dude? Right now, the remaining waters of the Aral Sea mainly have carp and perch species, like bream, carp, catfish, and roach. To maintain biodiversity, some invertebrates were also relocated here, such as shrimp and goby species that can survive in salty water. The devastation of the Aral Sea over the past 40 years has created a new threatening desert, the Aralcum. Instead of the former sea, a vast toxic desert remains, filled with salty dust storms that carry poisonous substances for hundreds of kilometers. The Amu Daria and Sir Daria rivers, which flowed into the Aral Sea, carried tons of pesticides and toxins that settled on the bottom. Now these dangerous particles are lifted into the air and, like salt on wounds, are carried by the winds across the region. Once, vegetables were grown here, but today nothing grows on these lands, and livestock must be sought hundreds of kilometers from the former shore. This ecological disaster has led to a decline in the health of the local population. Since the 1960s, cases of leukemia, typhus, chronic bronchitis, asthma, and other diseases have increased among residents. Traveling to the Aral region requires serious preparation from tourists. The climatic and environmental conditions can be unsafe even as part of a tour. Hats, wind and dust-resistant clothing, as well as ample water supplies, are essential. The hiking route through Aralcum is considered extremely risky, and the best time to visit is early autumn when the weather is relatively mild. The Aralcum Desert is the youngest desert on Earth, and its area already covers about 38,000 square kilometers. Some adventurers who have been to Aralcum shared stories of getting caught in dust storms and seeing salty mist settling on plants like a white coating, as if covered in chemicals. Sadly, these harsh conditions cause irreparable harm to the health of the local population, forcing many to leave these devastated lands. Let's head to another amazing corner of the Aral region, located in the Kizilorda region near the village of Akaspi. Think, please, step away from here. Here, in the middle of the steppes, a thermal spring was discovered in 1986 during drilling by a hydro expedition. The well drilled through the former bottom of the Aral Sea and reached an underground reservoir of hot mineral water at a depth of about 1,200 meters, with a temperature of around 62 degrees. For over 30 years, a powerful salty fountain has been shooting up over 2 meters high, creating a small stream where locals have found an unusual spot for swimming. Local rumor attributes healing properties to the spring, and now people come here from all corners of Kazakhstan. The mineral water is rich in beneficial elements that positively affect joint health, skin, and the nervous system. But it's important to remember that hot baths should be taken in moderation, no more than twice a day and for no longer than 30 minutes. New filters on Instagram today. This amazing place has become a true attraction that every traveler visiting the Aral region should see. But what secrets do the waters of the Aral hold? One of the mysteries of the sea has become the unusual signs found on its drying bed. These strange lines, or Aral geoglyphs, were first noticed by hydrologist Boris Smirnov in 1990. Researchers, including Smirnov himself, suggested that these figures might represent a message left by a highly advanced extraterrestrial civilization. In his works, Smirnov describes these mysterious patterns, lines, and stripes that form shapes ranging from 2 to 50 meters wide and up to 100 kilometers long, with side earthen embankments resembling the tracks of a giant bulldozer. Some of them have straight entrances and end with transverse bundles. Similar lines have also been found on the bottom of the northern Caspian, which only adds to the mystery. The origin of these enigmatic furrows and lines gives rise to various hypotheses. Scientists suggested that they could have appeared due to ice blocks moving along the bottom or under the influence of winds dragging ice flows. However, Smirnov categorically rejects such theories, dedicating his entire life to unraveling the mystery of the Aral geoglyphs, yet failing to prove their extraterrestrial origin. An interesting fact. One of the patterns, the so-called star or rows of winds, turned out to be an airfield on Vozrozhdeniya Island, near Aralsk 7, a secret city. The mystery of the other Aral signs remains unsolved to this day. By the way, about the Caspian Sea. According to one of the fascinating legends, the Aral and Caspian Seas may be connected by an underground passage or cave that links these two bodies of water. This myth receives some confirmation, thanks to an interesting fact from the Soviet era. At that time, a special indicator known as the marked atom was launched on Lake Kurdyunkel, which allowed for tracking the cycle of elements in nature. However, after the indicator was launched, it unexpectedly disappeared. Court approval was given. Later, it was found in the Caspian Sea, which made many wonder about the possibility of a secret underwater connection between these two bodies of water. Welcome to the mysterious Resurrection Island, where the secret Soviet city Aralsk 7 once stood. This closed settlement was part of a secret Soviet testing ground for biological weapons. Today, the island feels almost enchanted. There are hardly any plants, animals, or people left, and the atmosphere surrounding it is still shrouded in dark legends. Soviet scientists arrived on Resurrection Island in 1972. To launch a classified project related to biological research. The place was completely isolated and soon turned into a creepy zone where deadly pathogens were developed, including plague, smallpox, typhoid fever, and brucellosis. The island was divided into two parts. One housed an extensive complex of laboratories, while the other, known as Kantebek, was a real city for scientists and their families. Here, anthrax pathogens were produced on an industrial scale. In 1988, a dangerous virus leaked, resulting in human casualties. The spores containing pathogens were disinfected by mixing them with bleach and buried in pits, which are even visible in satellite images. Anthrax proved to be incredibly resilient. The spores withstood high and low temperatures and were also resistant to antibiotics, with sizes tens of times smaller than a human hair. Even today, these spores may be lurking in the soil, leaving the island potentially contaminated. Since the early 1990s, all inhabitants have left Resurrection Island, and it has been deserted ever since. Today, it is no longer an island, but is now part of the salt desert Aralkum, yet it remains an area with a troubling past. Although efforts have been made to clean up the area, many doubt its safety. The US once offered $6 billion to complete the decontamination project of the island. For a week, it was treated with powdered disinfectant, destroying some of the spores. But the air in the area is still considered contaminated, and only a few, mostly journalists, dare to visit it, dressed in protective suits. My surprise is unbearable. Such is the troubling history of Resurrection Island, a place that once housed one of the most secret cities of the USSR. What else does this mysterious body of water reveal? At its bottom, a lost Atlantis has been discovered. Now, in 2001, archaeological excavations began in Kazakhstan, during which scientists stumbled upon an ancient medieval city called Aral Sea, at the dried-up bottom of the Aral Sea. At first glance, the archaeologists couldn't believe their eyes. Against the backdrop of white salt, the outlines of ancient structures emerged, including mausoleums and necropolises. The area of this mysterious settlement is about 6 hectares. The discovered ceramics date back to the 14th century. Around the settlement, there were 2 mausoleums, and judging by the discovered agricultural tools, its inhabitants practiced farming, particularly growing rice and milling it into flour. This unique discovery disproved the biased opinion that in the 14th century, Central Asia was inhabited only by nomads and herders. The warehouses surrounding the city, as well as the irrigation systems, indicate that the local residents could export flour along the Great Silk Road. The city was built solidly, indicating the intention of its inhabitants to stay in this place. It is likely that Aral Sea was suddenly flooded when the waters of the Aral Sea rose, carrying away this civilization. Research on the ancient settlement continues today, generating immense interest among archaeologists. Yeah, the secrets hidden by the Aral Sea are truly incredible, but not as incredible as the salaries of our employees. We're looking for scriptwriters, voiceover artists, editors, and creative producers for our videos. Interested? Then click the link in the description and submit your application. Thanks for watching.